Yes. So now we addressed about issues coming with the graduates. Now it is to go for a little bit higher level, focusing the post-PhD people. So who finished a PhD and looking for job or internship or postdoc or whatever. So my first question is securing institutional national research grants from our local bodies. So I would invite Professor Dr. Prasanga Mantilaka to express his ideas because he has a lot of experience in getting grants from Sri Lankan institutes, research institutes. So over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you for that wonderful question. Now, this is important, especially for immediately after PhD, we need to obtain some research grants for our career because especially when you join university or research institution, you may need it for promotions and everything you need to attract research grant and keep publishing and then keep patenting or something like the IP, generate IPs, and then commercialize it. So, as immediately, if I share my experience in this area, immediately after completing my PhD, as I mentioned earlier, I received the National Research Council research grant. However, there I used some tricks. Uh, Especially, I created a research team and also a multidisciplinary area because I wanted to add my key area was value addition to natural resources, especially for mineral resources, earth materials. So then that was my PhD training. Then immediately after completing my PhD, I thought of doing another research in the same area. Then I created the research group. The Professor Gehan Amaratunga was one co-investigator. Then Professor Nalindi Silva for chemistry side. He's a good, he's a well-recognized professor in chemistry area. Then Professor Pitavella is a well-recognized researcher in geology, especially geochemistry and mineral sciences. So then I also had another collaborator on nanocomposites, Dr. Angika De Silva, my colleague at Shintech. So then I created that team. Then I had a good CVs, collection of good CVs and various broad range of researchers, engineers, scientists, various people. Then I applied it, and then when we apply, we need some kind of qualification. We need some good publication record, and also some supervision was also required for National Research Council and some to attract some competitive research grants. Because when we apply, we have limited number of grants in Sri Lanka, so the number of scientists are and academics are very high. Therefore, it is a huge competition. So then I use that kind of tricks, then published, and also you have opportunity to supervise, especially in our university, University of Peradeniya. We have about 3 postgraduate institutes. So then PGIS, then PGIA, and PGIHS. For IHS for arts faculty, then science faculty for PGIS, agri faculty. Then we can immediately start supervising with those institutes. This is how to do it. So you can contact some senior people attached to those institutes. For example, in my case, I used to collaborate with Professor Gamini Raja, my own supervisor, because I work in nanotechnology basically. Then I collaborated with him. He's a coordinator of MSc program in nanoscience and nanotechnology. Then he gave me some students to supervise. And Professor Peter provided me. So likewise, you can easily contact academics. Then let them know your idea. Then they will provide you some master students. Then MPhil. Then you can also together you can design a project for MPhil. Then they will apply for a research grant. So likewise, you can generate some immediate experience. Even I know a person called Dr. Nadish, Professor Gehan's students at Cambridge. So what he did was during his PhD also he supervised some MSc students in agri faculty because PGIA, because he created some collaborations. So you can also do the same and make your profile strong. Then you can easily attract a grant as soon as possible. And also universities provide some research grant schemes for early career. For example, when I was a senior lecturer at PGIS, we started the research program for PGIS staff members. We awarded 10 research grants for them. Then we can attract some in that way we can apply so for small research grants and generate our experience. After having lots of experience, we can apply for huge grants. That means grants having lots of money. And also always I believe that we need to display our profile to outside people. For example, we can create a nice profile on ResearchGate, LinkedIn. So those are very important. Then people will request to join with their research groups. For example, I got opportunity to collaborate with Korean University, where the researcher there invited me through ResearchGate. You are a good materials guy. My lab is it is on veterinary science research group. So they wanted to create manufacture some materials for their research. So they invited me. So likewise, you can have a good research profile and display it. Then you get lots of opportunities.
Thank you, sir. So actually, my first experience after the PhD is in Sri Lanka. I joined as a temporary lecturer here, but it was just a 6-month contract. But then Professor Roshan, who is also in this department, encouraged me to apply for a postdoctoral fellowship grant from National Research Council, NRC. So that was actually kind of a boost to my research career. I could publish several papers and then prepare myself to apply for the permanent position in the university. So actually, I think that sort of after the post-PhD opportunities we have here, like postdoctoral fellowships and other research grants, actually boost your opportunities to secure a position in somewhere. So I invite Professor Roshan Ragel to give more ideas about this topic.
Thank you, Janaka. Just to add on to what Prasanga was talking about. So the research grants locally for postdoctoral researchers, generally what the setup we have here is when you finish your PhD, you are generally a postdoctoral researcher will usually join the universities as an academia into the academic career. And then there are others who are less number of postdoctoral researchers in Sri Lanka who are working outside the academic universities. So if you take academia, we have almost about 10,000 such researchers. And the other numbers are much smaller. So I'm going to just specifically talk about the academic side of it because Prasanga was talking about the rest mostly. So from the academic side, there are two. Again, we are talking about funding research opportunities, how we can get funding for postdoctoral research. At the same time, we also have to build our career. So they are connected, like Prasanga was telling. So if you want to get some decent grants from the funding agencies, particularly the two major funding agencies in Sri Lanka, the National Research Council and the National Science Foundation, they look at your research profile. So you have to build your research profile while you are focusing on applying for such grants as well. So how do you build your research profile? A field like computer science, like I'll go back to what Prasanga said at the very beginning. A field like computer science, there's plenty of work or research that can be done in multidisciplinary research. So that is a place I think where most of our researchers and academics should focus on. And these universities are set up in a way such that most of these different multidisciplinary research is very much easy and possible. because we have, if you take a place like University of Peradeniya, we have almost every other discipline here. Medical side, agriculture, biosciences, humanities, social sciences, anything you could imagine, you have opportunities here. So we can think of multidisciplinary research, and that is one aspect. And then you have to find researchers or students to work with. So that's the next aspect. So the students to work with, if you are an academic researcher, you have the basic undergraduate students with you. So that's a place where, like for instance, I started a long time back. I first focused on looking at how we can enable the undergraduate students who are let's say final years or third years, whether we can do a decent amount of research with them. At the same time, we look at postgraduate opportunities. Again, like Prasanga was talking about, you see whether there are teaching opportunities you are available for postgraduate students. So you use those postgraduate teaching opportunities to bring researchers as well. So when you go teach, you talk about your research, you attract students who like the research you do, and therefore you can bring postgraduate master's level researchers, or even only like things like masters by research, which we call here MPhil, or PhD type researchers. So particularly like about 10 years ago, what I was doing is I was doing teaching at a postgraduate institution, from where I got, I mean, at a time about 10 master's research students who are working with me on a master's level research, which are like 1 year research projects. In addition to their 1 year DOT program. So that's an opportunity all of us should focus on. So when you are doing teaching, I know like a lot of our academics are doing postgraduate teaching. One of the aspects of Sri Lankan postgraduate teaching is it is monetarily it's paid separately. It's not counted towards your usual workload of your undergraduate assigned work. So it is an extra work. So when we do such teaching, I propose those who are interested in research expose, make that as an opportunity to show or tell about your research work, and see whether you can find or recruit master's level research students. So that is about how you can develop and build your career in research. And then when you have it, then you have opportunities like you have grants where you have research grants, you have for doing purely research, you have grants for travel. Places like National Science Foundation provide such grant, and universities provide a limited amount of such grants as well for travel, conference travel, a very limited year compared to foreign universities, but we provide a limited amount. And then we have training related grants, we have grants for publication. There are again, so research agencies who are providing, or funding agencies who are providing grants for publication. So those opportunities we can look at. So while we have to develop, so it's both sides. One, we have to work on improving our career, developing our profile as a postdoctoral researcher, the opportunities I mentioned, and then we use it to get grants so that we can do more research, get equipments, research students, and also traveling and other publication related funding. Thank you, Janaka. I hope I did some justice.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Roshan. Actually, that is a good point to start the research. As an early career academic, we can start with undergraduate students. If you are doing teaching with the postgraduate institute, we can start off the research with them, because postgraduate students, they have to do a research component to complete their degree. So they are looking for supervisors. So this is an opportunity for the early career researchers to start their full-time kind of research. These students are doing kind of full-time research for a certain amount of time. So and the other thing is, Dr. Prasanga also mentioned maintaining a research profile, like LinkedIn profile, or maybe ORCID kind of profile, or the web page kind of thing, research profile. That will be actually helpful, because during my undergrads, I came to meet Professor Roshan just by because I saw his research profile, his web page in the department website. And then I got to know, okay, this person is doing the things that I am also interested in. So that sort of thing, you have to, the early careers, they have to keep in mind to showcase what they are doing. Okay, so next we are going to focus about not only the local, but what are the opportunities we can get from foreign funding bodies. So I invite Professor Saman Halgamuge. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Maybe I go back to your previous question and give you an example. And University of Kelaniya, Dean of Science, Professor Halgamuge, and initiated a conversation with me because he came to my office in Melbourne and then invited me. I went there to his office, and then there was a research group. We had a few conversations, and we ended up submitting a grant together. I think it was from National Science Foundation. And he got quite a sizable amount, local grant. And so I think I'm named as an overseas investigator. So I had to submit my CV and so on. And the last report I have seen, and it looks very successful. They have done quite a lot of industry work in electronics space and came up with lots of patents and so on. So you could get money from local funding bodies. And I don't know whether the situation has changed, but during my last presentation, which I gave with National Science Foundation, and I did an analysis who is funding research in Sri Lanka mostly. So published research. So that what it means is, if you look at the publications from Sri Lankan authors and they acknowledge the funding, if you look at those acknowledged funding, you can see the most of the research funded in Sri Lanka are from Sri Lankan institutions like National Science Foundation and so on. And then also from local universities. It's very clear. So University of Peradeniya, University of Colombo, Moderator, and they're funding their own research as well. And then of course, this collaboration with foreign bodies like Australian Research Council and the UK, the United States, and they all come in that study. I think it's a couple of slides I put in that talk. So now today, and I can give you examples where we apply for international funding and not limited to Australia. So, and that is open to everyone, okay? So one of my students got a funding from Google recently, and she applied for it with some help from us. And it's a small grant, but it's very nice grant to create AI that doesn't discriminate, right? Or to create education material, right? It's quite nice, and because of the topic and the impact it could have. And they're also supporting her with the work. And another one in my team submitted an application a few days ago to Microsoft Zuckerberg Foundation. I think it's called Zuckerberg Chang Foundation. And he had to write something like 5 pages, very concise proposal. And it's open to everyone. So anyone in Sri Lanka with right, academic position can apply for it. And then I got another grant currently, again, applied by one of my collaborators, but I'm COSI. It is from United States Department of Defense Biomedical Research Fund. So you don't imagine the Defense Fund biomedical research, but that is the case. And we got quite a large amount of money from them to do some biomedical research. So again, it is open internationally. So anyone can apply for that. You just have to search for it, understand it, and prepare for it well in advance. So in our case, for the US Department of Defense, and first time we were shortlisted, we didn't get the money. And then we resubmitted it, and the second time we got the money. Okay, so there are lots of international funding opportunities available. And sometimes you could submit applications as an entirely local team. If you have the right qualification and you have the right team, you could do that. And sometimes you could collaborate with international researchers. But I have to clarify one myth. I think it just came across, maybe I overheard. So by participating in a grant proposal you put in, right? And at least I think most of us will not impose us as co-authors of your publications. That is illegal. We don't do that. Without providing a sufficient contribution, that is not the norm. If someone's doing it, that's illegal. That's not right. Okay. So we get involved in publications that we have contributions on. So I have to say that. So now, what do we get from participating in your grants? And of course, we would like you to do that grant and push the boundaries on science, right? We provide some help, but it doesn't mean that we always need to get a direct return, because your discovery could help us to do another discovery on top of that. So I have to just clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There are also other places, like I recently got a grant from the World Academy of Sciences, the TWAS. It is a UNESCO body to fund some kind of fundamental researches. And also we have kind of ICTP, maybe computer sciences students, electrical engineering students do not see much value from them because they do not fund for many applied kind of things. And also SIMPA, CIMPA. So they are funding for kind of fundamental theoretical physics, mathematics, sometimes a machine learning kind of mathematics related researches as well. So I invite Professor Gehan Amaratunga to express his ideas about this foreign funding opportunities.
I think Saman has covered what I would have said, which is that there are lots of opportunities available. Again, it's a global market, global playing field, and a lot of the charitable, or what shall I say, foundations, whether it be the Ford Foundation or as was mentioned, the Zuckerberg-Chan Foundation. I mean, their whole ethos is to be transnational. They're not necessarily, based around one country or one region. And in many ways, they're looking to attract people from countries which maybe have been less represented in research in their sponsorship. So I think, if you have a good proposal, do apply. It's of course again competitive, but I think it's a level playing field with those institutions. I think I would urge people to look at those opportunities which are funded or made available not by state authorities or not even multinational agencies, but by these large foundations. I mean, there's the L'Oreal Foundation. There are many foundations which fund research. Of course, they have themed programs. They have some of it's open, some of it is themed, but I think you should think of applying. I mean, Google, Facebook, which is the Zuckerberg-Chan, and Microsoft Research, they all want to get more people involved globally in their activities. So I think that's a good opportunity. One thing I would say at the end for people engaging in postdoctoral research is that postdoctoral research is of course good in itself to do advanced research, and then there are two routes after that, right? Which is either you become an academic or you become a full-time researcher at a research institute. But I think the maximum number of postdocs you should do is most probably 2. Right? Because otherwise you will get into a rut where you're just a postdoc for the rest of your life, and that's not what you want to do, right? So from a career perspective, yes, you must do a postdoc, but you must be, have your, you must have focus to say that, you're going to do this and you're going to try to get an academic job. And if you don't get an academic job, you shouldn't keep doing postdocs. You should go to a research institute, perhaps a full-time research institute. If that's not the case, then you join industry or do something else. But the work you've done obviously will stand you in good stead for that as well.
Thank you, sir. During our discussion, we have many times talked about collaborations. So how to start collaborations. So I would like to ask another question, which is not very common in Sri Lankan context. How to join with other maybe foreign institutes, universities, as adjunct researchers or visiting researchers, how to get that kind of opportunities. So I invite Professor Gehan first.
I think that, again, that goes to the links that you have with somebody you've already done research with. So to get an adjunct position, which is the easiest way to do that, is to become a research supervisor at a foreign institution, a joint supervisor, perhaps of some a student of one of your colleagues at a foreign university. But that depends on building research links with prior research links with the researchers in your field in other countries. So I think that, again, it's a sort of that's much more of a networking type of activity, I would say. You know, you're part of a network, and that network supports you, and then you support the network. And so that's how I think most of these adjunct positions at universities start. Other than, of course, in the United States, there's something slightly different. Some of the liberal arts colleges have what they call adjunct positions. They have very few full-time positions anyway. There are people working in industry are given adjunct positions to come and give classes. Yes. So maybe there are opportunities like that now online, that you can do it even from Sri Lanka. You can give a course online and then they'll make you an adjunct professor for that. So that's a more sort of teaching related adjunct professorship. And then there's the research related activity as well. So I think, you know, a lot of adjunct positions, you know, may be available for teaching in the smaller liberal arts type colleges in the United States, but that, I only really know of such positions in the United States mainly, or of course private universities in other countries, including even in Sri Lanka. There are, you know, private universities give these adjunct positions where they don't have full-time staff. You know, everybody's doing, they're using part-time staff for most of their courses. So those are the two things I know about.
So mainly these kind of adjunct positions are unpaid positions. But what are the other benefits? Can we get some kind of a publication fee kind of support for from these adjunct positions?
I haven't come across that, but you know, you can get sort of related if you publish a paper at a conference, maybe sort of support to go to a conference or something like that. You know, that should be possible. But even an adjunct position, you know, if you go, you know, physically go to that place, then you can get some expenses paid back and other things like that, right? So even if they don't put you on a full-time salary or a salary, but it could be a part-time salary, you know, that's also possible for an adjunct position.
Thank you, sir. So I would like to invite Professor Saman Halgamuge regarding this topic.
Yes, I agree with what Gehan said. And so I can also think of the adjunct position I have personally. And so I was, there are different names. So in Peradeniya, many years ago, it was called, I think, visiting professor. I had for a year or so. And then Columbia University, I had a couple of times. And they have different names. And one is called endowed visiting professor of computing, Professor V.K. Samanaka, chair of computing, and things like that. And so currently I have these sort of positions, and two universities in China, one university in Indonesia, for example. And what do they have from me? And I give sometimes lectures, and I go there, and I work with them, I publish with them, and sometimes they cover my costs, like they host me and they provide me local accommodation and sometimes pay the ticket for my travel and things like that. So now for Sri Lankan scientists, if they want to become an agent, and I think it comes down to the fit and the connection and the network. So the university will always ask, why should this person be an adjunct or visiting professor? And what is this person's CV? What is the connection? And you have to define that connection. So as Gehan suggested, become a course supervisor of a student enrolled in that foreign university is a great starting point. But there are also other ways of doing that, and maybe going there and giving a summer course and things like that. And funding, at least in Australian system, at least in my university, and if there's any funding that goes to adjunct position, that has to come from the supervisor, and that will be, if I initiate it, it will be from my grants. Yeah, I can't see the university providing. It's just a system in my university directly providing something from the top. Yes, they do, but that they are reserved for certain prestigious adjunct position. If you could apply and get that one, it comes with funding. So there is a variation of adjunct positions available.
Yeah. So these kind of positions like early career academics can focus on them. They can try to find out adjunct positions if possible, if they are jointly do some research. So that will be really helpful to maybe get some publication funding, or maybe you to use some equipments, some sophisticated equipments we don't have in Sri Lanka. So that is a very good collaborative opportunity we can get. So we have to, like early career researchers, we have to aware of that thing as well. Okay, so